Hello. Thank you so much for tuning into this ASMR soft spoken video. Today I'm going to be doing another requested case. So thank all of you guys for giving me really awesome suggestions. I'm going through the list, so if you suggested a case, I promise I have it and it will be done. So today we're going to be covering the unsolved case of Brandon Lawson. This one had a recent update as of 2022. So I don't know if I knew about the update, but it may be new information for any of you guys who've heard the case before. So, Brandon Mason Lawson was born November 18th, 1986 in Fort Worth, Texas, to parents Brad and Kimberly. He had one sister, Brittany, and two brothers, Kyle and Billy. Brandon was described as loving the outdoors, which included fishing and camping. He had always been an extremely hard worker. Brandon was a junior in high school when he met Ladessa Lofton, who was a sophomore. He asked for her number. They began dating and soon were inseparable. They went on to have 3 kids together. Brandon had a child from a previous relationship in high school, so Ladessa took on the role as a stepmother. Brandon was an extremely loving and devoted father to his 4 children. He worked extremely hard in order to be able to provide for his family. In 2013, Brandon was 26 years old and living in the home he shared with his long-term girlfriend, Ladessa, of 10 years. Brandon had a history of substance abuse throughout his life. He had been able to successfully be clean for about 6 months in 2013. He was working long hours in the oil fields each week for a company called Renegade Well Service. Brandon could work up to 90 hours, so this job was extremely consuming and stressful. On top of the job, he had stressors from having a newborn son and managing the needs of his growing family. He went on to find a new job that was due to start soon, which had better hours and better benefits, which was extremely exciting for the family due to it helping with his mental well-being and his ability to spend more time with his family. But due to the stressors that he was facing, he had recently relapsed into using meth. On August 7th, 2013, Brandon had called his brother Kyle to see if he knew where he could find meth. This had contributed to an argument between him and Ladessa. On the evening of August 8th, 2013, Brandon arrived home in San Angelo, Texas, and had an argument with Ladessa. She later explained that the fight occurred partially because they were both stressed out due to Brandon working 60-plus hours that week and having 3 small children in the home. Another major factor of the argument was that Brandon hadn't come home the night before, and Ledessa believed this was a sign that he was abusing drugs again. Brandon and Ledessa had a policy for how to handle disagreements between them. When things became too heated, they'd go into separate rooms, or one would leave the home, and they'd give each other a chance to cool off before approaching the topic again. At about 11:30 p.m., Brandon called his father. He told him that he and Ledessa had gotten into an argument and said that he wanted to come over to his father's house. His father, Brad Lawson, lived approximately 3 hours away in Crawley, Texas, from where Brandon was located. Brad tried to discourage his son from making the long drive, but Brandon insisted. Brandon had left his home in his silver Ford F-150 at 11:54 p.m. At 12 a.m., Ledessa calls Brandon, asking him to return home or go to his brother's house due to being concerned for him to drive all the way to his father's in the middle of the night. Ledessa's phone was dying, and the only charger she had was the car charger, and so she needed to leave her phone in the car to charge. Now, some of these phone call timelines could vary based on different websites. I tried to find the most accurate, but that's always frustrating when you're researching a case. But this is what I have. At 12:34 a.m., 12:36 a.m., 12:38 a.m., Ledessa misses calls from Brandon due to her phone being inside of her car charging. At 12:38 a.m., Brandon made a call to his brother Kyle, stating that he had run out of gas on Route 277. Brandon was in a panic at the time, and Kyle was worried that Brandon appeared to possibly be high and hallucinating. Brandon had stated that 3 men were chasing him out of town, and that these men were, quote, the Mexicans in the neighborhood. Kyle asked if he was tripping, if it was drugs causing him to hallucinate, but Brandon denied that it was all in his head. Kyle tells Brandon to stay where he is and that he will be there as soon as he can. At 12:40 a.m., Kyle and his wife, Audrey, call Ledessa to tell her that Brandon had run out of gas and they needed to borrow a gas can. Ledessa said she would leave the gas can out on the porch, and she states that she's going to take a shower and head to bed, but lets him know that her phone is charging inside of the car since she did not have the wall charger. Kyle then got into his vehicle with Audrey and their 4-year-old child to go to Brandon and Ledessa's house to get the gas can that Ledessa had left out for them. This was the part where I saw another version that Ledessa and Brandon's brother Kyle had communicated prior to Brandon calling Kyle, and Ledessa had put the gas can out saying she was worried he was going to run out of gas, which is kind of random. Why she would leave a gas can out before knowing he was going to run out of gas. So it seemed like this version made more sense. However, the part that's a little weird to me is that she missed those calls because her phone was in the car. So maybe she just happened to check her phone when Kyle called. I'm not sure, but since Kyle was short on money, he had planned to pick up Brandon, drive him to the service station, have Brandon fill up the gas can, and then take it back to the car to fill it with gas. So US Highway 277 was north of San Angelo and was right before the West Texas town of Bront, which had a population of not quite 1,000. It's a desolate 2-lane highway. Deputy Neal said a person could probably lie down in the middle of the road and not worry about being ran over. Kyle and Audrey started driving to Brandon's location. The brothers exchanged several more phone calls, with Brandon often hanging up just after a few sentences. At 12:50 a.m., Brandon makes a call to 911. Now, at the time, in the area of Coke County, Texas, they did not have a specific 911 dispatch center. So what would happen is the 911 calls would be routed to a nearby nursing home that was open 24/7, where certified nursing assistants would take the calls. It doesn't sound too smart, but now this 911 call was recorded, and it has a lot of debate around what Brandon says on the 911 call because it's difficult to understand. I would highly suggest, if you're interested, to listen to the recording and see what you think, and I'll post it, I'll link it in the description. Among a series of unclear statements, we do know that he told the dispatcher that he ran out of gas, he was in the middle of a field, and that he needed help and asked, "Please hurry," and then the call disconnects. What's even more challenging about this call is the dispatcher never asks for the location or name, which means when it disconnected, there was no information on the exact location. A series of calls were then made after 911. At 12:51, Kyle called Brandon and left a voicemail. At 12:51, Brandon called Ladessa, but she didn't answer, with her phone still being in the car to charge. At 12:52, Kyle's wife called Brandon, then called again. One of these calls, it's presumed that Brandon possibly said he was bleeding and to hurry. At 12:54, Kyle called Brandon. At 12:57, Brandon called his neighbor. In addition, 7 minutes after this 911 call, a trucker also makes a call to 911. He reports there is a pickup truck parked very awkwardly along the highway. It's partially on the shoulder and partially on the road. The trucker was concerned this may cause an accident due to it sticking out. So an officer is dispatched to the area where the truck is located after it was reported being parked unsafely. Meanwhile, at 12:58, Brandon called Kyle and called again. At 12:58, the neighbor calls Brandon back 3 times with no answer. 12:59, Kyle called Brandon. At 1:04, the dispatcher at the nursing facility calls Brandon back, trying to get more information on his location and what was wrong. She left a voicemail and then called once more. At 1:09, Brandon called Kyle 3 times. Kyle arrives at the location the same time as the officer, around 1:10 a.m. At the time, he was on the phone with Brandon, who told him, quote, "I can see you, I'm right here." But neither the deputy nor Kyle could see him. At 1:12, Kyle calls Brandon 3 times. At 1:15, Brandon called Kyle twice, the last calls that would be made from his phone. At around 1:18, Kyle called Brandon, who said, and this also was included, that he got to connect with Brandon at this time, who sounded out of breath and claimed he was bleeding. At 1:18, Aubrey sends a text to Brandon's phone warning him that the cops were at his truck. At 1:19, all calls made to his phone then began going straight to voicemail. This spotty cell phone service kept several calls from and to Brandon from connecting. With an active warrant out in Johnson County for possession with intent to deliver, Kyle assumed Brandon was hiding to avoid getting in trouble with the police. At the time, neither Deputy Neal or Kyle knew about the 911 call Brandon had made. The last gas station before Bront is in San Angelo, a distance of about 30 miles between one another. So Deputy Neal had responded to plenty of calls of people running out of gas, and he assumed this was a similar case. Kyle told Deputy Neal the pickup belonged to Brandon and that he was walking along the road, but his phone kept losing reception, purposely leaving out the fact that Brandon said he was close by in an attempt to potentially protect his brother if he was not wanting to interact with police. Kyle said, quote, "At the time I didn't feel he was in any danger." In addition, the way the deputy and Kyle had driven, it was from opposite ways. So while as they were driving in to where Brandon's truck was, neither saw anyone else on the road at the time. Both Kyle and Deputy Neal looked around the area and saw no signs of struggle and no signs of Brandon. After Kyle and Deputy Neal finished talking, Kyle decided to drive away and park up the road a bit to see if his brother would come out once the deputy left. Kyle says he sat there for about 30 to 45 minutes, and he and Aubrey eventually left because his son was hungry and crying, and they returned home at 2 a.m. Kyle returned at 5 a.m. and called Brandon, who did not appear. He leaves the gas can in the bed of the truck, assuming and hoping that Brandon will come back to the truck and be able to get gas. Because the pickup was over the white line and Brandon was the only one with the key, Coke County had it towed a little after 8 a.m. on August 9th, 2013. The next day, according to the sheriff's office report, Deputy Neal checked the homes and properties of owners who were gone because many people in the area used their land seasonally, looking to see if anything had been disturbed or for signs that someone might have gotten water from them, and he didn't find anything. Later that day, he checked the same area with a thermal imaging camera, but didn't register a human-sized heat signature. On August 11th, Deputy Neal reported a small private search team gathered at 8 a.m. and ended their search at about noon. The report states the only sign of anyone being in that area was a spot under a tree where it appeared someone sat close to the roadway within eyesight of where Lawson's pickup broke down. Texas Ranger Lieutenant Dwayne Gohl met with Deputy Neal and Coke County Sheriff Wayne McCutcheon about the case on August 12th. Deputy Neal reported that Texas Ranger Gohl came to the same conclusion as he and Sheriff McCutcheon came to, which was that Brandon is possibly no longer in Coke County, but they were going to see if they could make arrangements about a DPS helicopter. LaDessa came to the sheriff's office to officially file a missing persons report on Tuesday, August 13th. The same day, Texas Ranger Nick Hanna, who now leads the case, came to Coke County to take a helicopter ride over the area from the Colorado River south and along both sides of the US 277 near where Brandon's truck had been. Deputy Neal reports it was determined that Lawson was not on the ground due to the fact that there was a lot of exposed, bare ground, even under the short mesquite and cedar bushes. His report has concluded that his opinion is that Brandon Lawson is not in Coke County, lost or hiding. The opinion is based on Kyle's revelation that Brandon was hiding in the bush near his pickup to avoid being discovered by Neal, not seeing any indication of foul play in or around the pickup, and the text messages between Brandon and LaDessa detailing the severity of their fight that night. LaDessa says, "For a long time, I blamed myself. I will never get those words back. For her and their children, the 911 call contains the last words they have from Brandon. The two older girls listen to it on YouTube, trying to make sense of what he's saying. Beyond not being able to find Brandon's body, Kyle doesn't understand how all traces of his brother vanished. He says, quote, for a person to have a wallet, keys, a full keychain, socks, shoes, shirt, a wallet full of cards and money and an ID, and his cell phone and a cell phone case, all of that stuff, and not one single thing has been found out there. I just don't understand that. My brother might have been a felon and might have messed with drugs, and he might have relapsed. But my brother worked for what he had. He loved his children. He took care of his children. He was a good person. He wasn't some dope fiend living in the streets, robbing people, or trying to get over on someone to get high again. LaDessa believed that someone knew something about what happened to Brandon, and that if they just came forward, they could make my life and my kid's life so much better. On February 4th, 2022, Brandon Lawson's family announced that a search party had found what they believed to be Brandon's clothing near his last known location. Shortly thereafter, the Texas Rangers conducted their own search of the area and discovered human remains. As of 2023, the DNA results are still pending, but his loved ones strongly believe that these remains belong to Brandon and that they're one step closer to learning about what happened to him on that August night so many years ago. Dessa shared her feelings about the discovery, saying, "We feel in our hearts it's him. We feel like, who else could it be? He wouldn't leave his family. Brandon wasn't that type of person." On June 5th, 2023, on a Facebook page dedicated to his disappearance, they posted, "Good morning, everyone. We know that all of you have been waiting anxiously to hear of the DNA analysis results of the human remains found earlier last year. Unfortunately, we still not have the results. I know with this statement, the questions many of you have is, why? What is taking so long for these results? Here are some, not all, of the answers to those questions. 1. As Ladessa stated a number of weeks ago, very little remains were found. This presents a challenge at the laboratory because, with each attempt of analysis, a small portion of the remains is destroyed in the process. 2. The remains were exposed to the open elements for over 8 years. This causes extreme degradation of DNA in the remains. So far, the remains have been to 2 separate laboratories in an attempt to overcome some of these challenges. All of this, no doubt, comes with frustration. Bear in mind, no one is more frustrated by this more than Brandon's family and loved ones. The Texas Ranger currently in charge of Brandon's case is weighing other options in an attempt to ID these remains. In respect to his investigation and the case itself, we cannot reveal what those options are. We will update everyone further as soon as we are able to. On June 29th, 2023, which was a couple weeks ago, last week, Ladessa posted, "This week definitely hasn't been in my favor. I get so overwhelmed sometimes about everything. I need to just look at the bigger picture, be humble and kind for everyone that has been on my side for the last 10 years that Brandon has been missing. Does it hurt and frustrating we still don't have answers? It does. I believe in hope that law enforcement will soon have to do another search to find other human remains. In August, it will be 10 years. Just can't believe that it's been this long. I know in my heart that he didn't just walk away from his family. Please say a prayer that a miracle will happen soon. Thank you for everyone that has supported our family during this time. Ladessa." Anyone with information about Brandon Lawson's disappearance can call the Coke County Sheriff's Office at 325-453-2717 or the family's private investigator, Paula Bourdreaux, at 214-926-0048. So we will get into the theories. As the years went by, primarily 3 theories were developed. Brandon disappeared willingly, he was harmed, or he succumbed to the elements. It's assumed that the remains found are that of Brandon. Although those results are still pending, we still wouldn't know what the cause of death would be. So, I want to start off with the 911 call because it's been analyzed so many times. I listened to it multiple times trying to understand. There's various versions that people have written out. So I'm gonna read out a couple of them, and if you guys listen to the 911 call, please let me know what you guys think. It's the first one. Operator, 911 emergency. Brandon. Yes, I'm in the middle of the field. If they could just bring some guys over. Right here going towards Abilene on Broughton side. My truck ran out of gas. There's one car here and guys are chasing me into the woods. Please, hurry. Operator. Okay, now run that by me one more. Brandon. I tried talking to him. I totally ran into them. Operator. Ah, you ran into them. Okay. Brandon. Just the first guy. Noise. Brandon. I got shot. Operator. Do you need an ambulance? Brandon. Yeah, no, I need the cops. Operator. Okay. Is anybody hurt? Noises. Operator. Hello? 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 And some people believe very faintly Brandon says, help me. I don't hear help me, I'm not gonna lie. I just hear 2 little clicks. I don't hear that, but... Okay, here's another version. Operator, 911 emergency. Brandon. Yes, I'm in the middle of the field. This guy just threw some guys over. They're out here going towards Abilene on both sides. My truck ran out of gas. There's one car here. The guy's chasing me to the woods. Please, hurry. Operator. Okay, run that by me one more. Brandon. There's one guy talking to him. I totally ran into him. Operator. Ah, okay, you ran into them. Okay. You can hear this faint noise in the background that some think is a second voice saying either the first one or protect yourself. At this time, Brandon then says, got the first guy. Some people then believe they hear gunshots ring out. And then, operator, do you need an ambulance? They think they hear the second voice again saying, see there? And then Brandon saying, no, I need the cops. Operator, okay, is anybody hurt? Hello, hello, hello. So some believe that there's definitely a second voice there, and that the voice actually appears to be in some kind of agreement or cooperation with Brandon. Upon hearing the tape, I'm not sure about the first time people hear the voice, but I do kind of see how a second vocal voice may have been picked up before Brandon says, no, I need the cops. It doesn't sound like it could come from Brandon because Brandon's response kind of interrupts the vocal pickup. But I don't know if I hear the words as clear as some people say they do. And I don't know, I think it could also just be like phone noises, I guess. Okay, I saw another person, which I thought this was interesting, saying that they thought that they heard Brandon saying, I'm in the middle of the field. a state trooper pulled some guys over, and they think that like the state trooper kind of ran together through like the fear, exhaustion, intoxication slur, and it sounded like kind of like stupor, which I can actually kind of hear when you slow the recording down, but I can hear it many ways. Some people also think that instead of saying the guy's chasing me into the woods, it's possible to hear he got chased into the woods, or the guy chased him through the woods. You can also potentially hear him, this one guy is talking to him, or we're not talking to him, or, and when I'm talking to him, I totally ran into him. Some also hear killed the first guy instead of got the first guy, which applies to some that he may have witnessed something or was hallucinating. Some observers believe the noise indicated in the transcript were gunshots, while others think it was just a vehicle crossing the bridge over a nearby river. The true source and nature of the sound have remained a mystery. In my opinion, it's like one of those audios that tells you to focus on one word, and then you can hear it, and then it tells you another word, and then you can hear that word in the same audio. So it's like, which makes it even more difficult. And the mystery of this case, I think, is that 911 call. I don't know if I hear gunshots. Some of the sounds they were picking up would sound like normal, like phone audio to me. That's just natural, especially if he was out in a spotty service. I could see some of that sound just being a normal pickup. But it's so funny, I did not hear a second voice at all. And then in the video they just slowed down the audio, and I had in mind what people said they heard, and then I could hear it. So again, I don't know if it's because I already had it in my mind and then I heard it, but that's a big debate, I think, was there a second person in this audio who was talking to him, around him, things like that, which would be very, very different course of this case if there is a second person. I'm not so convinced, but so one of those theories is that Brandon had the misfortune of being in the wrong place at the wrong time, and that he witnessed something he wasn't meant to and was murdered for it. Proponents of this theory point to what sounds like the gunshots and the voices, combined with the Brandon's own claim that he was being chased by men. The other theory is that Brandon had run away. Early in this investigation, police believed that Brandon had left town on his own free will to start over somewhere else and dodge his arrest warrant. A piece of information that seemed to bolster this theory was that he had apparently cashed out his 401k shortly before vanishing. However, Ledessa was unaware of whether or not he had received the money yet. Could you figure that out? Since Brandon's phone last pinged at 1:19 a.m., 3 miles away from his truck, this led some to wonder if he could have been picked up by a passing motorist. His family never believed that he ran off. They felt certain that he wouldn't have chosen to leave the children whom he loved so much. Additionally, the arrest warrant reportedly wasn't a big deal to him. It certainly wasn't serious enough to make him abandon his family, and was in fact something that he had been actively working to rectify. So another theory is that Brandon got lost out in the area, either due to being forced out there by something or someone, or being on drugs, which led him to die from natural causes. US 277 runs through the desolate terrain. It's an environment that's also apparently largely inhabited by rattlesnakes and feral hogs. When it comes to searching the area, some landowners wouldn't allow a private investigator that the family hired, Paula, search their property. But Paula does say that she was told by rangers and sheriffs that they cleared the land. So in fact, those remains then would be those of Brandon, who succumbed to those natural causes. Or there's always the possibility that those remains are not Brandon's, and his could either still be out there or not in that area. So, it sounds like they're pretty certain the remains were Brandon. But of course, I would still leave the question of how did he die? I think, in my opinion, just because both the deputy and his brother were coming from different areas and they didn't see anyone, I don't think there was anyone else there. Or it was the truck driver. Just kidding. I think he may have possibly been under the influence and unfortunately succumbed to natural causes and was potentially hallucinating. Either way, this is such a tragic case because he's so young with such a young family, and hearing about his daughters, listening to the YouTube video, like, I'm sure I would do the same thing, but I don't know if that broke my heart. But anyway, please let me know what you guys think about this case. And thank you again for the suggestion. And I hope that you are having a good day or night wherever you are, and that you have a good day tomorrow. And I'm going to see you in my next video.